live. Hi and welcome to today's lunch talk here at the Great Journey. Today we have Rosanna Johansson here with us. And today's topic is 5 marketing tips for your indie game. Some great tips, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to post those in the comment section here below in the YouTube, and we will try to answer all the questions after Rosanna's presentation. And if you're interested in game development, make sure to like and subscribe The Great Journey. And with that said, it is now time for Rosanna to talk about her marketing tips. Welcome.
Sweet. Thank you, Michael. So let's see. Hi, everyone. I think I haven't spoken to all of you. I think you have maybe seen me in Discord because I'm writing a lot in there and doing some streams. But let's just jump right into the presentation for the lunch talk. So what we want to talk about today is one of the things that I am really passionate and really want to work with. It's like the marketing tips for your indie game. So we're gonna talk about, well, kind of superficially, a lot of things. So if you feel overwhelmed, do not get discouraged. It's gonna be okay. Like, everything is a process, and you don't need to follow everything. It's just enjoy, and if you want to, you can write questions into the chat, like Michael said, and we will talk about it afterwards. And I will almost always be available on Discord, so let's start. So first, a little bit about me. So I studied game design a couple of years ago. So I have I don't know what to call it in English, but I have studied 3 years game design and media technology at BTH down in Karlstad, and I also studied digital media creative in Karlskrona, and that led me into the marketing for video game because I got really interested in how the player and the video game work together, but also how do we communicate through the marketing perspective to the potential new players. And now, since I think 3 months, I am the communication here at the Great Journey. So I work with the communication, which can be anything. It's internally. I post announcements and events in Discord, which might be where you have seen me. I've also done some live streaming here before, and I think we are looking into doing more of those because I think those are really fun. But what is my background? I started during my digital media creative course. We had an internship, and I was at Raw Fury for my internship period, so I worked on a couple of games and sales and marketing for that. After that, I worked mostly with smaller company indie games. Coastal Byte Games makes VR, and then The Station Interactive. I worked with one of the mobile games, so my focus have mostly been marketing for smaller games and smaller companies. So I think it's it fits really well with what we want to do here at the Great Journey, because we want to expand and build upon the game industry. So I am super excited to take on that mission and work with everyone to achieve that. So next slide is why we are here, and this is kind of like the agenda for the talk. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the why of marketing, like why do we do marketing for a game or for a product, and then we're going to talk about where marketing is happening, where people are usually doing marketing, context for everything. Context are really important, and I'm gonna have some things to say about that. Also talk a little bit about the content you actually post. And the last thing, which is, or not the last thing, but the thing that I'm most interested in is the engagement. What is that and what do we do with it? We're going to talk about a landing page and why it is important to have one later on. And then I have one more surprise, which is actually a 6th tip that I'm super into it. I think it's really, really cool. So we're going to wait with that and then see when it comes what it is. And after that, we're going to have the Q&A, and then Michael is going to get into the picture again. So any questions, just write them down and we go through them later on. So the first one is the why of marketing. So marketing can sometimes be looked at with disgust because people think that marketing can be sellout. Like you do anything to get likes, you do anything to get known. Are all marketing good? Can marketing be bad? But mostly I think the core of marketing is to get known, like get people to know you or your product, for example, your game or your studio. Like if you are talking and pitching to investors, for example, it's really nice to have like a following on social media or have some media sites pick up and talk about you or your game. So I would say that the core is to get known, like get people to know about your things. It's an easy and really great way to connect with your fans that are really interested in your development of the game, but also in the game itself. And like if you have a really great connection with your fans, it's gonna help your game in so many ways. Another thing which is more on the marketing side of it is actually you gain knowledge. You know who is going to play your game, who is playing your game now, and who you want to target when you do marketing. Also, people start to do marketing really early. Some teams do it like right off the bat, like when they start, like we have this idea and then they start looking into the marketing. That is not necessary, but it's really important to just don't do one push and then stop doing it. Like always, it's an easy way to stay top of mind of everyone who might be interested in your game. And usually you also talk about time versus money, or I usually talk about time versus money when I talk about marketing, because if you have a lot of money, you can do paid marketing like through Facebook or YouTube or Google, which helps you a lot because you don't have to spend super much time on things. Like you need to do things and then the algorithm do things for you. If you don't have a lot of money, which usually indie studios don't actually have, you can invest time. And time and money is super precious. So look at it when you come that far in the process of your gaming. Just look at it like how do you prioritize these. So usually the case are that you have created a game. Let's say this is the best game ever and it's ready for launch. The gameplay is tight, the graphics is crisp, both narrative and the music complete each other. What do we do now if we haven't done this already? Where do I start? So the first tip I have is actually to start really small. Just don't force yourself to post every single day or to multiple times a day if you don't have the time for that. Research the different channels that you can use. For example, Facebook and Instagram can be really good, but maybe your target audience, that's the people who might be interested in your group, hangs on Reddit, for example. Then maybe it's not good to put time into Facebook and Instagram, but just focus your time to Reddit. So just look at the different channels. Like we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have YouTube, we have Reddit, we have a lot of like different channels. A really great tool for this actually are Discord, because then you can connect everyone at the same place. It makes it easier to talk to people. And this is where it gets a little bit harder, because you are looking into a target groups. Like who are the people who is gonna write about your game, talk about your game, play your game. Like who are these people? And it's really hard because usually when you make a game, you're like, I think this is great. This is my idea and I would totally play it. But it's really, really important to let other people like play your game, talk about it. and help you in spreading the word, because peer-to-peer is actually the best marketing you can have. Also, look at a little bit about into the algorithm, like Facebook and Instagram's algorithm. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that more into the engagement setting, but they can be really confusing. They update all the time, and they are very, what do you call it? Like, it very depends heavily on how well you interact with other people. So you need to actually usually spend a lot of time with it for it to be super effective. So start small. Next one, which is one that I think is really important, is the context of your game. We're gonna look at two different examples soon. So to look at the context of the game is to take your game idea and just step back into the world and look what is happening. Why, like what is the why of your game? What is happening in your game? How can that be, like, people coming from outside the game industry or within the game industry, if they come and look at your game and maybe don't play it, just look at like a teaser or a picture, how do they see it? Can it be dual meaning in that? Like, it's a lot of things to take in, but just be aware, look at what's happening. And some things can't be helped. The two examples I'm going to talk about soon are typically two examples of things that happened and then they couldn't really do anything about it. And one of the things I'm really, like, I'm talking a lot about hashtags when I talk to people about social media, and that is researching the hashtags that you're using. Because some hashtags that you think, like, oh, this is a very appropriate hashtag, can actually lead for your brand, your studio, your game to be set in a context that you don't want. Like, for example, if you don't want to appeal to, let's say you make a game that are appealing to people who are vegans, and then you hashtag something that lets the game get into a context of I don't know, meat eaters that are very specifically and very specifically like hating vegan things. That can be a stunt, but it can also be really bad, because those are not the people that you want to target, because they are probably not the target group you want. So when you look at hashtags, for example, for Twitter or Instagram, just look at what is actually posted in the hashtag, so you see that your things, your game, your brand are fitting in. So these are the examples I want to talk about, and I'm going to talk about their context in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the first one we have is The Last of Us Part 2, which was very anticipated. And due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the game needed to be delayed, because the game have a topic that can be misrepresented in this kind of context. For example, in The Last of Us, there have been an apocalypse where people have been infected by a fungi virus, and the COVID-19 is also infecting people right now. So both Naughty Dogs and Sony actually backed up a little bit because of marketing reasons, but also because logistical reasons. Because when China shut down all the people making the physical parts for the game, that delayed everything in production. Also, people started to get sick and people needed to be home, so they couldn't really finish everything. So there's a lot of like outside circumstances that are preventing this product to be released. On the other hand, you can look at the photo that's beside it, which is Animal Crossing, which came out a couple of months earlier, but still like in the midst of the COVID-19 outbreak. And that game has a more peaceful, like almost meditative way of looking at the world. Like everything you do is very like easy, like you take it easy and you just feel everything. It makes you relax. And I don't think they could have actually gotten a better context for releasing their game. And it's so like everyone during the beginnings of the COVID-19 quarantine that happened really needed a distraction. So Animal Crossing just gave them the space of calm that they needed. So these are examples of two games that were affected differently during, like, for the context of the COVID-19. Next thing is actually content, which is what you post on social media or on Reddit for that matter, or on YouTube or anything. And mostly people are focusing on the unique selling point of your game. Like, how do you promote that in different ways for the marketing? And a really great way, if you are not sure how to do this, is actually look at other people, other indie game developers. What are they doing? What's happening? What are they doing on the social media? Are they posting a lot of like small clips of the game? Are they doing dev diaries? What is happening? What are they doing? And try to just look at what can I do that? Is that something that can be like applied for my game and for my marketing strategy? You can also find very helpful tips for what platform to look at if you look at what other people are doing. And again, start very small. And I've also written content calendar. And that is because, for example, my friends over at Something We Made, which is a small indie game company down in Karlstad, they have made small videos every month to document like a dev diary, what's happening, both with their game but also with their studio and so on. And it's really nice just to look at what are people doing, what's happening when you make games. So shout out to them because I could use their content. I'm really happy for that. I'm gonna have a link down in description later on. You can look at what's happening there. But I would say that the most important thing actually is just to try out. Try out and analyze how do people respond or react to the content you put out. Do you get more likes if you put out a video, or do you get more likes if you put up a poll, for example? Make people engage into your content, which is something that I'm going to talk about later on. But this is a very interesting perspective of how to make content for my two examples here. So for the first one, you can see the guy on the mountain that is from Firewatch, which is a game from 2016. And they said that like their elevator pitch of it was kind of a little bit, it was a hard sell. Like, you were walking around in the like forest of Wyoming and you don't really know like what's happening. You explore everything. So how would they, like, without giving away the whole plot, talk about this in their marketing? So they actually released a really good teaser that I encourage you to look up. And they exported a new build, which they sent out to, they were very specific for influencers to play on their channels. So they went for a strategy of showing less to build the suspension of what it actually is. And then we had to the right No Man's Sky, which was a game also first released in 2016. And they overpromised, we can say they overpromised on what the game is gonna be when it was released. And I think now, 4 years later, I think after 2 years or 1.5 years, they actually achieved everything they promised in the beginning of their marketing campaign. But when they released, the game was pretty empty. It was hard to find other people. It was not a lot of like environment or animals that which they promised would be a great thing. It was very AI heavy. So really interesting to see how everything was. It was also an exploration game, which was pretty empty, which makes exploring pretty hard. So they had a marketing strategy or show like the vision of what we want to do when we release the game. And sadly, in the beginning, they couldn't really deliver on that. But I think I've heard when I talk to people who have played it, because I haven't played myself, that they have actually made it now. So everything is where it should be delivered. Next one is engagement, which is one of the things that take a lot of time actually. And that is, like, for all the platforms, they have different algorithms. So if you want to get into the algorithms of your chosen platform, great, do it. I'm sitting with like Facebook and Instagram like almost weekly just to look at all the new updates that's happening. But it differs. So look into what platforms you want to look at and work with and how their algorithm is working. For example, organic reach is very low on Facebook. Like if people like your Facebook page, for example, I think it's up to 10% can see your posts organically coming into the feed. The other 90% doesn't see it. And that is because, like, for Facebook, they have the user first mentality since a couple of years ago, and not the publishers. And this can be confusing. Like, when you post and publish something on Facebook, for example, you are a publisher even if you are a game studio. So they look at what the user are most likely interested in, and then they focus on pushing that into the feed instead of like the newest thing from everything that they are following. And this is where it can be really interesting to look at the clear, unique selling point of a game and how to make everything you do easier to understand for everyone that is looking at it. And one of the thing that actually takes a lot of time also is to engage with others, because engagement is how the algorithm know that you are important, like your brand are important for a specific person. Like, are they engaging with the content? Are they liking, commenting, sharing your things, or are they just scrolling past? Because if they are scrolling past, then that's gonna have a lower score. For example, they have a score system in Facebook where they score everything of how relevant it is for the people who are watching. And by engaging with others, you show that it's really easy. Like, you show interest in others, people show interest in you. It's actually as simple as that. So that can take some time. Like, usually when you make a post on like Instagram, it really encourages to stay on Instagram for 30 minutes before posting, just liking, commenting, sharing their other people's content, and then 30 minutes after you post, so that the people who are commenting, sharing, and liking your stuff, you can engage with them back again. So there's a lot of things that you need to handle, or don't need to handle, but can be really good for algorithm if you handle, which makes the engagement part can be overwhelming. And this is actually not for social media in itself. This is for the landing page. And the landing page is usually just a web page with one specific goal, which is everything you need in the beginning. I would say that it is very conversion friendly. Like the goal that you have, the call to action is usually called. It can be everything. It can be sign up for the newsletter, sign up for the beta, sign up for the alpha of the game. Just if you're interested in what we're doing, it can be anything. Like sign up to get 30% off when the game is released. It can be anything. And this is a really great tool for you to like collect information about who is interested and in your game and how to reach them. Generally in marketing, having a like newsletter, for example, where you push out a newsletter when the game is released, is gonna have a higher conversion rate. But I would say that the thing that is most important with landing page is actually it's more accessible. Like, for example, say that you are targeting people who are on Reddit. So, as an example, not everyone are on Reddit. Not everyone that are interested in your stuff are on Reddit. So there can be people who are interested or might be interested in what you're doing, but don't have a Reddit account or doesn't usually frequent Reddit for that matter. And it's so easy for them to just like Google you and see what's happening, and then they get information that way. So it's very accessible for everyone to have that. Just easy. You can have your press kit there later on. and contact information. Just everything that's relevant, but just keep it minimal, because you don't need to like when you're creating your game, you don't want to spend time just designing a whole web page with thousands sub pages and so on and so on. Just keep it simple, easy, collect everything. So my last part in this is actually the guerrilla marketing, and I really like guerrilla marketing. Like, it's a non-conventional marketing technique, which is where you do something that usually are very budget friendly, an easy way to engage in people, make people talk, make you stand out into the market. For example, the picture we have here is from Resident Evil 5. Before the release of Resident Evil 5, we had the people put up, what do you call it? Like, they took body parts, like fake body parts, bloodied them up, chopped them up, and just spread them across New York. And then they sent out a map to people to go and find the body parts. And when you did, it's gonna be like they got a bunch of stuff. Like they got the game before release, I think, or something like that, or a demo. So it was a marketing stunt. And usually it is a little bit like budget friendly. It can also be very non-budget friendly. For example, for Halo 2, they made an it wasn't an alternate reality game called I Love Bees, which was not actually connected to the Halo 2 release until you finished it, or until they actually exposed it as that. So one way to look at it is like, can I make guerrilla marketing a thing? Do you have something in your game? And guerrilla marketing can be something that's really like in the front when you are close to release. So if you have, for example, let's say that your game specifically have a very specific food that are in your game, very symbolize your game in a good way. Let's say it is an orange, for example. You can put a tag on the orange and then put a key to your game, and just, for example, stand on the Swedish game conference, just giving people fruits, because fruit is something that is easy to consume, and everyone wants to have more energy when they are on convention, for example. And then it gets really funny because, this is a thing that's actually a thing in the game, and people start talking, taking photos, and so on and so on. So if you have an item, an action, or a gimmick that is very unique for your game, use that, because that can be one of the best way to go viral before your game is out. So we have made a superficial overview, actually, of the wire marketing. We talked about where to be, the context of your posts and your game, the content where you post on social media, how to work a little bit with engagement, a landing page, and a little bit about guerrilla marketing. So I think it's time for a Q&A now, actually. So thank you. You can find me on Discord, and I have my email here. I'm gonna put the slides with a link in Discord, so you can download it and look at it again if you want. Otherwise, it will be here on YouTube. So, welcome back in, Micke.
Thank you, Rosanna. Great presentation. I'm just gonna roll in.
Roll in.
Okay. Wow. Super interesting, and
a
lot of stuff to get through. So with that said, how can teams here at the Great Journey watch this presentation again? You're gonna put out PDF, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put in the presentation so people can look at the presentation and the links, a little bit of links of what I've been talking about. Post it on Discord. I think it's
That's great.
Best way.
Absolutely. That's awesome. We also have one question here, and it's how is there any tools or any ways to get to help out, to get an overview? You mentioned the calendar. You also talked about different channels. Is there a way to get an overview or just tools to help out in the process that you know of?
Of everything. Well, there are a lot of tools for scheduling your post beforehand. So it's like if you know that every Friday we're gonna have this specific post, and it's easy to do the post on before Friday, then you can just schedule it, and then you don't need to like do everything in the last minute.
Yeah, you don't have to do it at the time. You can just set the time.
Yeah. Okay. So there are different tools out there depending on platforms. We have multiple platforms. For example, if you want to post on the conventional like social medias, for example, Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, there are like Hootsuite or Later are very good for Instagram specifically. So there are different tools, and I can link them down below later on.
That sounds really good. So that we don't forget. Cool. I think we have a question here also from chat. Do we record a video? Yes, we do record a video.
We do record it, yeah.
All our lunch talks are recorded here, and you can watch them again
whenever you want.
Yes. That's great. Interesting, yeah. And if you are here at The Great Journey, Rosanna works here, so you can always, if you want to ask her anything about marketing, she's right here. Just drop by here at The Great Journey. So, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Rosanna.
Thank you, Michael, letting me
a great
talk about my passion for marketing.
That's great. And and that's it for today. Thanks everyone for joining in, and don't forget to like
and subscribe.
And just drop by here at The Great Journey if you're interested in game development. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.